We are sitting here with Vic Muniz. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Who is a Brazilian-born, New York-based artist, one of the most famous contemporary photographers in the world, whose extraordinary adventure going to a landfill, otherwise known as a garbage dump, one of the world's largest outside Rio, and working with the people there who collect garbage and live there. He took pictures of them in classical forms. They invoke Malay and Jean-Jacques David and the Madonna and Children. And he's done this with garbage. And it really, I must say, Vic, when the movie started and you said, I want to do something that's socially relevant, I started to think, oh my God, what am I in for here? This is going to be so boring. And I was in tears. It's one of the most affecting, beautiful pieces of not only work, but as a person, what you did with these people. So can you talk a little bit about, you come from Brazil, you come from a poor background, you've become world famous, your pieces sell for $50,000 or more around the world, and yet you wanted to do something to sort of give back. Was that the impetus here?
I guess there's a point that, as I was growing up, I wasn't very used to having much. My parents were able to give me everything that I needed, but I didn't have anything that I wanted. And I guess, my professional life has been successful enough that I'm able to get everything that I need, to the point that the surplus, I have to find a meaningful form to deal with the surplus. I don't think having a second car, a house somewhere else, these things are really not working for me. And about 10 years ago, I realized that the amount of pleasure you can have just for being more involved and more present in the context of the world you live in. It started with a project with street children in Salvador that I got completely involved with. And then since then, I caught this bug of just all the time trying to figure out something to do with working with an NGO. And I at one point, I tried to open an NGO in Brazil that dealt with the, visual literacy, but once I realized that I was going to deal more with bureaucracy than with charity and with philanthropy, I gave up. So what I've been doing there for the last 10 years is a project called Centro Espacial. Whenever I'm approached by a large company, say Louis Vuitton or L'Oreal, for a commercial project, instead of saying no to them, I say yes, but I take the project and I work with a group of youngsters, normally basically people from, have several programs that I work with for young people from the favelas around Rio. These programs they deal with social issues and also with art education. And what I do, I pass the project to them and I supervise the making of it. And the money goes, I funnel the money directly into these NGOs. This is something that I've been doing quite often. When this film came about, I was already working with 2 or 3 NGOs quite often and effectively.
What are NGOs?
And it's a non-for-profit organization.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there are many in Brazil. And when the film came up, I was already working with junk. I tried to work with garbage before, a few years before, unsuccessfully, because I tried to work in another garbage dump called São Gonçalo. And right upon our arrival, me and Fabio, my assistant, we realized that we couldn't work there because they were surveilling the garbage. They were protecting the garbage with machine guns, heavy.
It was a little
weapons.
dangerous.
Well, the drug traffic hides weapons and everything else under the garbage pile. So, and for them, it's an easy way for them to move them around in barges around the Guanabara Bay, around the Rio Bay.
Okay.
So we didn't feel that we could work there. What happened, we started working with junk in another studio because we could not have just organic garbage there because there was a school that functioned there. And for 5 years we developed a series working mainly with discarded goods. But the garbage is different than junk. Garbage has a smell. It has it has different meaning because these are not things that really can be you can be reused. It's something that is a sort of a part of your history that you don't want in your family album. Everything about garbage, it moves towards invisibility, moves towards like you're trying to hide it all the time. So for a visual artist dealing with a material that's predominantly, always like being something that everybody tries to hide, I thought it would be interesting
To put it out in the open.
in the sense that you would look at this, and as you approach the picture, trying to identify the material, you get into this problem of repulsion. So you just have to pull back because you know what the meaning of it is about. So I had a aesthetic, a mechanical, interest in how to use the garbage to make pictures. But I hadn't really, because I was working with this in a different way. I hadn't gone there to do that. Once I met Lucy.
Lucy Walker.
Yeah, Lucy Walker. I met her in Newcastle when I was doing a show in England, and she showed me one of her movies, which was called The Devil's Playground.
About the Amish.
Yeah, and it was impressive to me how she was able to really disappear, she used a very small crew, and that was one of the key, I think, issues that made me interested in working with her. The idea that she could really be invisible, and it was an illusion. Of course, she was very present. She was very demanding as a director, but it was. I thought that this was the beginning of it. Also, she mentioned to me that she had been to Fresh Skills and she had a keen interest in the subject of a garbage. So instead of doing a documentary about my work as a whole, we opt to do a project about a body of work from the beginning to the end. That's what the film is about.
And one of the interesting things is your wife is an artist, and
Yeah,
you see
my
the two of
ex-wife.
you. Your ex-wife now?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but we see the two of you discussing what will you do to these people in changing their lives. You're taking one of these guys from the slums who's never been anywhere, much less on a plane, to London. He's the one in the poster right behind you, posed as Marat in the bathtub. And he's the leader of the person who's founded this organization for the recyclable collectors. He's a wonderful, charismatic individual. And you take him to London and you argue that no matter what happens after, this is a fantastic thing for these people to have in their lives.
I find it very arrogant to actually decide people's future. And I don't. The fact that I exposed them to a different situation for me was enough. Something that, in my view, because I come from a very poor background, and if I was granted the same opportunity, I would embrace it entirely.